It's YNK, so since I stole all of Thorin's gigs, at the very least, what you guys can do is subscribe to his YouTube channel, so go on and do it right now.
When you guys won this tournament with JKS, there was obviously that whole thing where, like, everyone was like, oh, maybe Rain's too old now, maybe they should just get JKS for real, which wasn't actually on the table. But what I want to bring up is this, I think people have done the same thing where they just remember now how well he played and they pretend like he was just doing that before and everyone's hating. It's like, first of all, if Rain played the way he did at the major before that, no one in the world would say kick him, remove him, replace him. And also, like you said yourself earlier, it's like actually these new players, it's like the concept, if people don't know, this happens with dogs. If you have a dog that's getting older, you get a pop and it sort of actually like brings the vitality out of the older dog again. They sort of like meld in some way and it gives them a second life, as it were, right? One of the things I thought was wild about this was, after this, it was only like 2 tournaments till the major. And this is the thing, right? Before, when everyone complimented, like, remember I said Yanko, my boy, was in FaZe. When people used to compliment Rain, it would be like this. Like, he's playing all the hard spots, or he's an entry, he's a soldier. These are all like essentially compliments for like, you're not going to have the star numbers, you know? You're going to be like good, and essentially you're doing a hard job people don't appreciate. No one could really have anticipated he would actually like, and this isn't even like a meme one, like, you know, where they sometimes give like a player who overperformed. He actually even statistically was like the MVP of this major. I even remember in like the final on the last map. If people don't know, outside as CT or Nuke isn't where you put like your bad player. That's where you put the guy like an eco, someone who's going to frag out or something. Like, he was fucking carrying the whole thing. Like, at the end, it was almost like we were in his movie or something. I felt like at that major. That was ridiculous, right?
Yeah, I think the most he calmed on that CT side Nuke was dead. Dead.
Okay.
It was like, yeah, it was like not so much what he was doing. He was just roaming around, playing off feeling, and that's what I said. Like, once Rain is in that mood, everyone starts laughing in the team because like the communication and how he sees and how he aims is just something out of this world. It's so fluidly, it's perfect, you know. But in his role, especially on the T side, he's not always gonna get huge impact. He's a lot in. He has a lot of rough duels, but obviously when you put him in a final on Nuke CT side outside, and we won the first map, he's fired up and he knows this is how he's not gonna stop. If you might kill him 1 or 2 times, but he's still gonna come through the smoke and still play aggressive. And that's why we have him. Like, he's super good. He's always doing the same, and that's also why, even if you sometimes lose, like we lost on T side, like we're playing bad, the bad trades are bad, me and Rain is still doing the same. But if you don't get the trades, me and him, it looks very bad. But we're always doing the same thing. Like, we will never back down. We always play aggressive. We always do what we used to do. And if you both have a tough game, it looks really bad on paper because the way we die and the way we move. But one thing I always loved about him, he doesn't change. Even winning the MVP, he was still super chill dude.
Okay.
Going to the next tournament, obviously a little more confident. But then obviously he has these off and on tournaments, but you know it from day one if he's there, you know? Or if he has a bad start, you know he might pop off, you know? Like, he always have this map or this half where he will have the team. Like, he had such a huge impact that when he's go off, it's like enemies don't want to come, you know? Like, he's such a dangerous player when it comes to that. And like I said, he's the best teammate. It doesn't change. He's still super calm. He even said in the final, 1 main, 1 heaven, while he's getting shot from 2 free angles, but it's so calm, you know? And that's what makes him very unique compared to everyone else.
Obviously, the crazy thing is, it was like 7 years ago that you guys hooked up in the original FaZe Clan all that way back, and you got to have this second like lease of life with him. I always thought when I looked and saw you guys winning and the way even you played in the big matches, like, everyone focuses on the 3 young ones, like the Zoomers, as it were, as opposed to the 2 boomers. But I always felt like that gave you like some special connection because, like, I noticed in the big matches, you and Rain seem to get really up for it. It's like you sort of know like you later in your careers, and you seem to always take pride in the fact that like this is like the last ride, right? Seeing if you can win all the championships on the way out.
Yeah, it's true. It is like me. It is me and Rain last ride. You know, like, we talked to each other after FaZe. We wanted to play at any point it was possible, and it made sense. But we both enjoy playing each other. We both know how we complement each other, especially the way I'm calling, the freedom he gets, and he's not always, even if he does mistake, I'm not always mentioning it to him because I know when he hits his game, the mistake is not mentioned, you know, because he's playing off feeling. And for me, we have a deep connection because, like, we have been through rough times, and now being on the other side and having some nice times is just how sometimes the story should end, right? Like, it's super good that I had the chance to play with him because I think unfortunately, after 2018, I think a lot of people wrote off Rain. The way he was playing in FaZe was not good enough. I even had a talk with him when I joined. We have to step up, both of us. We have to lift this team. It's gonna be rough. It's gonna be not the first year. It's not gonna be easy because we have to get used to each other. The meta's changing, but once we get reps, I promise you there will be trophies. So we have to survive and improve and hold the team together. And I'm just super proud to have played so many years with him, as a player, and always, no matter what, always had his trust and loyalty with me. So that just shows a lot of like a connection we have, and hopefully we can still ride it out with some trophies on the way out to the sunset.
Right, if someone asks me, how do I want the matches at a major to go? I'm an observer, so I can be selfish. I want the most crazy back and forth wars, like one team's winning, the other one, you win their map pick, they win yours. If you're a player, if you ask a player, especially if they're trying to win their first major, they're going to go like, just give me like easy 2-0, 16-6, 16-5. This major, it looked like the universe threw everything at you to lose this one. People forget, in the quarters against NIP, like when they won that second map and then in the third one, dude, they were like in position to potentially like pull away. Then in the semis, that young spirit team with Dexter, they were fucking like, they were popping off in that game. And then even in the final, everyone now goes like, oh, obviously, like Na'Vi was different because of all these. They still looked like thought they were going to win the fucking major, mate. They were really good. Like, essentially, if the analogy was this is like a boxing match, you did win, but you got the shit beat out of you to win, right? It must have been a really fucking satisfying way to come through it all and win at the end, especially when not only is it your first major, win national team, but you've got that whole stigma of like they choke. If you put them under pressure, they choke.
Yeah, I mean, also, obviously, we didn't have Robin with us, right? Behind us, we had Eddie Han Solo, almost 100% win rate in best of threes as a coach. But the tournament started really bad. I think we played the first best of one in Legends. I got a wreck 16-6 against them. So I was like, okay, here we go, we have to step up now. We cannot go out 0-3 as favorites. So yeah, I think the mental state of the team was that we were coming out a high from Pro League win, I think. Yeah, we won the Pro League, and good to have Rain back, and he was getting used to like getting away the pressure from the JKS thing. I think that affected him the first day of group stage in ESL, but coming into the major, he was very confident. And the funny thing, we had such a bad boot camp before coming into that major, mood-wise and how we played. We got wrecked so much. So I think plus people knew, okay, we need to step up after losing the first game. And I think since that ends game, we didn't look back, like we played super good CS, and I just tried to maintain the focus on the team and bring the team together with the huddle and say, like, I remember the Spirit game I told you guys, they are coming out swinging. They have nothing to lose. They're, in many eyes, they were not supposed to be here, but they are one game away from being in a major final. So I think that game was very, very hard because it was such a chaotic game. It was back and forth, tech nines left and right, 1-on-4 clutch to Maggie's gun those two, where we go to another overtime, a few overtimes on those two. So yeah, it was an awesome tournament, obviously because we win it, but also the crowd was insane. It was so loud in the arena, and you could really feel that when we played the final, that everybody wanted that final because it had been the anticipated matchup for the season. I think the way we were playing, winning, and Na'Vi, who, in my opinion, was the number 2 and number 3 in that period of time, and they showed end of the year that they were still like a top team. So I think obviously whatever happened to Na'Vi is obviously sad, but I always feel like that when a team takes over, there's always something happening. Other teams changing. There's a reason why we were hard to beat for everyone. There's not only Na'Vi that lost to us, but we won a lot of tournaments in that period of time. So what a final also. Like I remember so many situations on Inferno. We are up, I think on City side, I'm over peaking, I'm strafing, I'm trying to tell myself, okay, you will not have any regrets, Finn. Then I played run round passive. It was like, Finn, okay, this time you don't strafe, and I killed like 3 from library. And the next round I was saying to the guys, no regrets, I'm running down mid again. It was like such a emotions and experience I learned from my past losses that this final cannot, like, it's not a specific final. I just thought to myself, like, I would make this call at any given moment, but because of the final I might not do it, and I just told myself to play like I've always done and not overthink it like I did back in the days. And I think that change of mindset doing the Inferno game really helped me believe in myself that it's true. You have to play the game you want to do and not being scared and just trying to play it safe to get the result home, because we got outplayed and that when they were T side we just played way too passive, and that's not how we play in FaZe. We play aggressive, we are up in the face, and if we lose a duel we have the 3 young guns to clutch it out. That's our play style, if you want to put 10 words into it.
Right, obviously the parallel was always going to be there to the Boston Major and the Inferno game, etc. I actually have a good one. I don't want to make it about the calls, but I did always feel like the one thing I do think was a mistake about the Boston Majors, if you ever go and look once FaZe reach a championship point, it's not even that you do anything fundamentally wrong. You don't make some terrible call it's more like it just felt like you were like, right, if we just wait, they'll sort of just give us the championship. Someone will die here, Nico will get a 2K, they will get this, and then it just didn't happen. So this game you're talking about on the first map, Inferno, if people forget, as you say, you were up, but then Na'Vi came back really strong, and they were controlling from T-side. It looked like they were just going to win the game. And I remember actually one of the plays where actually you just went all the way down banana yourself, and were like trying to just like aggressively take like 2-3 people. You were down like the Cobby down the bottom. Like this felt like a different karrigan. Like the old karrigan also might have thought like, right, you just sit back, let your stars when they get CT side, let them come to us. Like in this scenario, like those players that you go for, if they don't work and you just get fragged and you open the site up, you're going to feel like an idiot later. You might regret that. But something changed about you, right? In this moment, you kind of just went for it. You kind of said, fuck it, right?
Yeah, I think I learned that from some losses where I might hesitate a second or two, but if I don't, and I just feel like it's right in the moment, I just have to do it. And I think I think it's first time in a long time. I remember talking to my wife before the final of Na'Vi. I had butterflies in my stomach. And I haven't remember any time that I had butterflies stomach 4 or 5 hours before final. And she just kind of reminded me that it's because it means so much to me. But on the same time, it has not to mean a lot to me. I have to go in and play this other final, but it's good to be nervous now. It doesn't mean that I want this so bad, But I need to make sure that my mindset is in that sense that I'm not too over-aggressive, but not too passive. And I think in that Inferno game, I was very aggressive as a player on the T side. I got a lot of good openings. I played aggressive one time on the CT side in the beginning of the half, and we had the results. And then I started to go too passive, and I wasn't balancing it. So I just reminded myself what I had to talk with her before the game, that whatever happens, like this final doesn't mean everything in my career, but if I'm pushing down, I just have to make sure that I told myself before the push, no regrets, Like I will play with the balls that I always do. I will go through the smoke if I feel it's the right thing, and not thinking what happens if I die. And I think that mindset, I was so proud of myself after the game that I controlled my thoughts for a moment, or accepted that I was nervous and accepted that I played it wrong, and then went into the final rounds to make my impact, win or lose. I tried to help my team to win the game instead of sitting and waiting. But Na'Vi was outplaying us in the end, and it was so hard to do anything. And when you want to play aggressive after you play passive, it's so obvious, It's like going on Mirage 3 times in a round on T-side Mirage. They're gonna be mid setup. They have to call it, but it's so obvious sometimes as a call. And I think I was just happy that I managed to stay focused and not think about the Boston Major. So it didn't pop up anything, but it just reminded me that I have to play my game and just go with what I believe is right.
One thing I've always wondered about, it's actually quite cool if you look at a lot of the great players that have won the major, is not that many of them actually win it super early on. Like I've always thought, if you're someone like Olaf Meister or Flusher or Cold Zera, they won the major, I think, within 1 year of joining their team or less or something. So it's more like they have the success, boom, with the World Championships. In your case, just like people like Simple, like Nico now, they've been in that position. They've been thinking about it for a long time. They've been in the semis and had to see the other guy, like you're saying with the stairs, see him be the one to lift it, and he gets his moment and all. Like I always think of obviously the Boston one where it's the most brutal whatever, where that confetti's just coming down on all your faces. And you're all just like, fuck my life. Like when you actually finally get there after all that time, like it's got to be a crazy moment, right? So, could you even believe it was real? They handed you the trophy.
I think when I think back in this period of time, that we won the 3 biggest trophies within a span of 6 months, and I've since that is gone, it felt so fast. I was still high on the Caterers rim because that meant mentally and emotionally way more to me how we're able to do this. Once again, I'm bringing a stand-in. We're winning a tournament. Like it's incredible story. Coming to the major, we could feel that we were the favorite to win the tournament. Everyone expected us to win, or at least go deep to the final. Or if we lost to Navi, that maybe could happen. But we were expected to win. So I think I was just high on the bubble, you know. Like when I lifted the trophy, I told the guys I didn't want to lift it, but they all pushed me forward. That they wanted me to lift the major trophy, you know. And it was, I couldn't believe it in the beginning, but on the same time, it was going so good for the team. It just felt like it was meant to be. I don't know how to explain it. It was just like from when we went into the tournament, losing first map, but regaining focus and playing good CS, and it just felt like it had to happen, you know. Like it was. I think it's only after it was. I felt like I did it, but it's not enough for me, you know. I had more chances to win major. I have to win one more. I have to win other trophies. So I just think like at that moment when we lifted the trophy at the major, my eyes was on a Grand Slam already. I couldn't even enjoy the win because I knew we are such a good momentum and so good in the mood now team that we have to close out the Grand Slam, and that took forever though. But I think it was just a very strange feeling. I felt like more relieved in some way to win Katowice because it was such a big storyline, and in Antwerp it just felt like we had to win it. We were favorites to win. So I think it felt just somehow better to win the Katowice than could the major if I have to put it up together to how I felt emotion after.
Right, obviously after that was the one you referred to where the Cloud9 Russian team won the IEM Dallas and you had that epic game against them in the quarters. Right, the weird thing is, obviously even before Rups, you had that one in Cologne a couple of years earlier. Then, like you say, at Katowice, it was another game where it was like, I think it was either a quarterfinal or a round of 12 or something again. Then there was this one where they beat you. Later on, they even beat you actually at like the Pro League. And the joke is, if anyone goes and looks at these matches, you'll think you like have the same Wikipedia page open. Like it looks like the same match every time. Like it's like 3 maps, they're all like 1640, like 1970, and then every time they win, Axile has like, I don't know, fucking plus 30. Every time you win, it's like your team has some pop-off. This rivalry, even though they haven't actually sort of done their part and won more trophies, it's a fucking epic rivalry. It seems like it's an amazing match every single time. Why do you match up so well, and what's kind of the battle going on in these matches, do you think?
Oh, it's clash of styles completely, you know. Cloud9 is a very, very slow team. We are very explosive, chaotic. And I think it's just funny how it all started. Right? We didn't have a chance online. Then we won a lot of LAN games in a row. Then when we got Robs, they started beating us. And it was somehow always in quarterfinals we met them. Like it was, and I feel like when we met them, of course it had to be Cloud9 in a Grand Slam of Pro League. Like, of course it's in the final, and it has to be Cloud9 we're playing. Like it's just meant to be now, you know? But also in that sense, I really realized that we have never played Cloud9 in a final, in a high pressure moment where it's life or death, you know? In a quarterfinal, I always feel like this. I think my team gets better the deeper we go, because that's how we work as a team. That the closer we get to the finish line, the more clutches will come out, the more chaos there will be, the more you can see us getting fired up. And obviously, you have to be the same every time, but it's just very hard. And it felt like playing that final finally put a nail in the coffin that when the pressure's on, when it's all or nothing, I felt like we can beat them. But if you meet them in a group stage or a quarterfinal, there's a big chance they might have a better matchup against us. But obviously, it is clash of styles, but also so much skill on the server. Like when I'm thinking about it, the way some of the rounds switch left and right, the way they're clutching, playing slow, but they have aggressive Naphany going for something like I do for my team. Maybe they get an opening, the whole round escalates, and then suddenly Exile is killing 3 guys in the back. And I remember so many crazy games against them. They're mentally draining because we are such a conflict of how we see the game.
Right, obviously, when it came to the Cologne tournament, which again was another one you wanted to check off the mark, like I'm sure you were thinking, oh, that one, what about the time we played Big Clan and some of the other times when when it was a major, you were always in the semis. There's many, many times you could have won this tournament, right? This was the one where if people want to see, like I said earlier, FaZe Clan win, but it's like at the end, they're just like all broken teeth and blood. Like this best of five, like I know that players hate best of fives because of matches like this, Karrigan, where it's like you went to war, mate. You just go by the time I've heard by the time you're in like map 3 and 4, it's like you can't even remember like where am I? You just play. And I've always said it's like survival at the end. You're not playing your best CS, no one is. But the crazy thing, if people don't notice, like you now actually have this insane record in best of fives. I think I looked up, you'd won like 8 in a row, something mental. Like this has to be the best one though, because it was like the movie. It went all the way to the end. I mean, they have to feel like they could have won this one too. This was ridiculous, this final, right?
Oh, it was 50-50 when it was 14-14. I felt like it was such a... I think we won the first map, lost first map. It was 1-1, and then they are up 12-3 on T-side Ancient.
Yes.
No, yeah, the other way. There was CT side.
Yeah, there was CT side, yes.
It was like 15-4. And we come back to 15-15 on Ancient and just fighting so much just to lose in overtime. And we go into Mirage. I'm telling myself, that's a rough map to play in right now when they're 2-1 up. But they just never came online in that map. It was 16-6. And going to Nuke, it was strategically, it was planned for me to have Nuke 5th map. Because no one of us would give the CT side. And I knew that there will be a moment in that game, if it's 5th map is Nuke, that there will be a moment where Rain says, I don't give a shit anymore. And he's playing the most important roles on that map, and he will do crazy stuff, and he will still go for it. Where if you're getting tired, you might play a little bit slower because like you are getting tired in your head. But that best of 5 finals was some of the most insane CS. And to top it off, it was end of the season. I remember sitting outside, I couldn't talk for like an hour. I was so drained because it was a long game, and we had the game on Nuke, but then they came back, and then we had to repeat the call twice, and we ended 16-14. It was such emotions, and also because of like winning, the pressure we had to win the tournament to like win 3 big tournaments within like 6 months that people only dream of. You know, there's not so many Cologne and Katowice winners. Many of them is the double champions. You know, there's not so many new champions of these tournaments because they're such a prestige tournaments.
Right, obviously, later, as you say, you did complete the Grand Slam, but I want to take that moment you're talking about there, because that's the other ridiculous thing. When you've struggled that long to win a Katowice, to win a Cologne, the idea you just win all 3 is ridiculous, right? In some sense, is it as easy as the storyline version would be in the movie? Like in the movie, it would be like what you said, you know, you just learned from the losses and like take your chances and let whatever comes. That all sounds great, but like some of this must also feel like I didn't really expect to just win them all, though. Like you don't expect to just get it all back in 1 year, right?
No, like I said, I think in 2019, I told myself I might not win these 3 bigs once. It's so hard to win them. I have the best team. I had the underdog team. I had a perfect mixed team and Harvey the game, and I had the best players in the world. I couldn't win, you know. But I think every time I went there, like in my previous career, I just wanted to win it so bad that I tried to overdo stuff. I think I took it more calm, and I think after winning Katowice, I just like, at least I got that one. That was my first thought. At least I got Katowice in the back now, you know? So I don't have to worry about that. And then I just felt like it's so surreal to think I fought like 10 years to win Katowice and Cologne and a major for that matter of fact as well. And then I win it within 6 months. It's just like, of course, couldn't you just like, God could just have put me 10 years ahead and I start like where I'm 30 instead of making me go through all that pain. But in the end, I just felt like there was a reason why I took the long route, you know, and I took big risk playing international teams where no one wanted to do it. I took a lot of strange decisions early in my career, but in the end, when I trusted and I had the right team with all the errors and trials I did as trying to follow the meta, and obviously winning it with my age and consideration is just a fantastic feat, and it just shows that I never gave up. At any moment, I never gave up, but I just had a change of mindset that helped me a lot to just trying to not think too far ahead, you know, like when you're in a semifinal of Cologne, there's a chance you win it. I never, in these moments, I didn't think about it. I just thought like, okay, this is the first time I can play in the Cologne of a Cologne final. I've never been there before. Then I was there and I was like, okay, whatever happens, of course it's Navi again. And at some point they have to win against us in a final, but there they didn't, you know. So it was just awesome way to end the season with. It was ridiculous to, like you said, to win all those 3 within 6 months, and one with stand-in, and after that best of 5 final, of course, I had to go to 30 rounds. Really had to fight to get it, you know. But it's all part of my story now and my history. Like, it just took the long route to get those trophies, but now I have them in the cabinet.
Also, there's a very weird sort of piece of trivia, which obviously helps if people are trying to build the case that you were a great IGL. Here's the difference, is a lot of other teams, like obviously Device won all the MVPs in that team. Simple won them all in Na'Vi. Like, there's certain players, they're the main star that you expect them to. And so the hater can always go, yeah, but what if you didn't have Simple, whatever. I always thought the cool thing we'd got this trophy was, it's like a different MVP every time. Like, look, that A shows the team's really deep. Like, obviously taking nothing away from the players, but it's that kind of just shows also that the team leader must be doing something right.
I hope so. I mean, they're still playing with me, right? So I think I'm doing something right. I'm like I'm saying, I'm trying to do my best to make everybody feel comfortable. I know players nowadays, they want more impact. You know, it's like on a soccer field. You know, you don't want to be the second or third guy, but you need some maps where you feel like you can do the impact for the team, and that's why you see Rob's playing Connector Mirage, and you see Rain playing outside on Nuke. There are some maps and some roles where you could see the player flourish, you know. But other times in a best of 3, we have different players popping off in different maps, and I think that's what makes our team unique. That we're not always putting the eggs in one basket, you know. Like, we can have people pop off. We can have our AWPer shy away from the game, but we can also have him come in and just win this huge clutch out of nowhere, you know. So I think the team is just such a clutch team in that sense. Whenever there's a guy in a 2-on-2 or 2-on-3, it just feels like those players click in the way they see the game and the way how they move and understand each other. So I think that's why you see different MVPs, and I think that's just because, like, the roles you have in a team where it's not one guy controlling everything, but everybody's chipping in on different maps to make sure that they understand they have an important role. They have to help the team win that game, you know?
That's even something that I think it sounds like the dream to people. It's one of the reasons I think super teams don't work. To have like all the players could be the MVP. They all could be having a great map and a great game. But the reason why I think super teams often don't work is if I really do have those old Na'Vi lineups where I've got like Simple and Electronic, it's pretty streamlined, isn't it? Like, we all know who the stars are here. We're not having a big debate. Like, if I'm Zeus, it's like I'd be an idiot not to play to Electronic and Simple, wouldn't I? If there's an AWP, it's going to, you know, it actually makes it in some ways, even though you only have these set pieces, it's very obvious what you should do with them. When you have the pieces you do, I've always thought the weird thing must be during the tournament, you sort of have to get a feel for who's doing what and who's up and who's down. In a game, you have to get who am I calling for? Who's the player for? Who are we shifting towards? Who are we leaving on his own insight? Who are we rotating? Like, it can be a blessing. You've got all these tools to use, but you also have to know which one to pick, right?
Yeah, I mean, me and Robin is talking together. You know, when we go deep in a tournament, if I know a player's having an off tournament, I might avoid the map where he has the hugest impact, you know? Like, there'll be other choices because of this guy's playing really good, or this map feels good in the tournament because this guy is going ham, or this map doesn't feel good because he's not 100% confident. But if the right pick as an overall team, I would do it. But there's like these small factors. But also, my calling style can change during a tournament or during a game. Is like, if I feel like people are not taking the initiative in the clutch, they're not taking the gaps I see, then we will do a more simple contact plays where we can get the trading. So these get some of the players in position where they should flourish, or they should just play on autopilot on how they know, because sometimes enemies are throwing curveballs at you and how they reacted at the game plan, or they're not playing like this last game, but now they're trying to abrupt our default, but people not doing too much to like adapt to the situation. Then I obviously try to do some simple things and make sure we at least get in the 3-on-3s, because if we don't win those, that's how our team is built up. We have to win the 3-on-3s. We're not gonna play the pretty CS or the best flashbang CS like Big, or having the best utility in the game, or having the best moves as CT. But I know that every piece, if they are working at 90%, we are like a 5-headed monster, you know, in that sense, that I'll be super aggressive, create space, everybody's taking the gap. And it can also be the backside of not having a star player, because in a star player, you know he would always deliver the 30 frags.
Yes.
You were always in the 13-13, you drop the weapon to this guy. But in this team, it feels like suddenly one guy is getting a hero AK because he's going ham, you know, like it's different players taking different responsibilities. And the same goes with, we don't have a set secondary AWP. Like me, Trist, and Robs is using it in different ways, in different sense, where it makes sense in the gameplay. And I think that's something we've been better at in this last season, is trying to make sure that we are not always too static, because sometimes you're comfortable, but if you pick up the AWP, everything changes in the team. Everybody's moving and playing a little more free, you know. So it is hard not to have one best player in the world, but we have such great players that if one of them is playing good and the rest of them having their stable level, we are a really good team. But if two pop off, then it's very hard for the enemies.
One thing that's quite interesting is Apex, who just won the major himself with obviously Vitality. He made a comment after he won the major. He told me it again in an interview, actually, which is that one of the epiphanies he had was from FaZe Clan. Because when he had Zonic in his team, understandably because of Astralis, Zonic wanted to play like Astralis. He wanted to play like slow CS, play by the numbers, you know, punish. Play. But what they realised was Apex says he doesn't think that works for international teams. Like international teams, you don't have the like luxury of the same language, same culture. It's like he says, actually, like your team, you got to play a bit faster. You got to take some chances and sort of capitalize off your skill a bit, right?
Yeah, I think it depends on the IGL as well, right? Because if the IGL is a very aggressive player, he wants to be in control of the early rounds, and then if he's creating space and he sees something, he can react, and if not, then the players have to step in and take over the clutch, right? So it makes sense, and I think it's getting better. International team, every player that joins a new international team now already speaks English, already knows how this, because think where we are in 5 years. I think in 5 years, you will not really talk about international teams anymore. It will just be a very default thing. We already see it now. Everybody's going international, and everybody played in different international teams now, meaning they try to create their own culture as an IGL. My culture is not Danish anymore. The way I work, the way I see the game, it's mixed of who I played with and understand the personalities, where they come from. I have to understand the person, where he grew up and how he sees life and family. And Denmark is very equal, you know. So it is gonna be such a different thing in the next couple of years, that it's gonna be, everybody's gonna be better and better and better in communicating English. They're gonna be better team play, and I think Vitality showed some of the best team play, or even Gamer Legion showed the best team play that I've seen from international team, with how they're flashing and how they're moving. They're really in sync with that. But it takes more time. It takes hard work to do, but also takes the players with understanding what they have to do for the team and not only for themselves, right?
When you said earlier, like jokingly, like you just think to yourself, like, God, why couldn't I just skip to now? Why can't I just win at the beginning? At the same time, I've got a good analogy for you. I'll actually use Simple as an example here, because one thing I've noticed, it's one of my theories, is whenever people say, like, you know, Astralis won 4 majors, it always makes me think, dude, there was 19 majors though. Like, how did so many? Why were there not more teams that won more? But then one thing I'll look back on is the teams that won early. One of the problems, like I was saying earlier, if you're a great player that wins early, is sometimes like you've already done it in your mind. Like you completed the game, like you got to the top, but may only be 1 or 2 years into your career. Maybe you haven't fully developed everything, but you feel like you got to the top. And you notice a lot of them get stuck in that thing of they just keep playing that style. They even keep bringing back the same players. They try to recreate it, right? One thing I feel like, if I'll use the example of Simple, is if Simple, I mean, he was already good enough to win the major probably in like 2016, but if he actually had have won then, when he had way more like spicy personality, he wasn't as well-rounded a player, he was like a really flashy explosive. If he'd have won then, maybe he never becomes the GOAT player now. Like, I always feel like the fact he never won meant every year he's got to keep grinding. He's got to think to himself, is there anything more I can improve? Like if people don't remember, like back then he was really raw in how he played. Later on, he became like, those moves were always correct because his skill level was impossible. His game sense got amazing. He even sort of started to understand things like utility usage. I feel like the reason we got the Simple that won the major with like the most bonkers stats ever is because he had to like level up. Didn't something similar happen to you? Like if karrigan really does win in 2015 or with FaZe Clan, you wouldn't be the same caller you are now, right? You didn't have the same tools. Like you weren't the clutch caller back then. If you'd have won, maybe you never become this karrigan.
No, I think it's very hard to answer. I think that's what I'm saying. It's when I look back now, like in the moment, I feel like I failed as an IGL, but in the same time, it wasn't a fail in the end because I became a great IGL. I won the tournaments I wanted to win. I even completed the Grand Slam and stuff like that. And I think it takes also a lot of motivation to keep being self-reflective. I think I have been very self-reflective during my period of time, but in simple case, I could also see him he's trying everything he can. He can't do more. The stats are going up. You can only point fingers at some point anywhere else in the team. And for me, obviously, I couldn't point much other than trying to be self-reflective, right? Because I'm the leader of the team. So in the end, obviously, I'm happy with how my career because it just makes the comeback and how I could do it. Maybe I'm in my prime now. Who knows? Because now all the big trophies are coming, right? But obviously, when I look back, it just feels like I always won trophies in 8 years. I think only during COVID I didn't win an international in what's called the international trophy. But so many other years I won with different teams, different scenarios, and it just showcased that I tried to always improve and always follow the meta. And I think the same for Simple. There was a big carrot in front of his head. Like for me, there was something I needed to do, and I cannot end my career not winning these big trophies. So obviously it helped us to who we are today and also improved me as a person, as an IGL, that if you get it handed too early, maybe you would not have worked too hard, but I know myself, I would still try to do everything to win, but it just gave me extra motivation maybe to wake up every day, and that's why I'm still trying to compete with the best, because for so many years I've now tried to chase everything, and now I want to chase more than that, like so new goals. But for many years the same goal was every day, like winning a major, catching the Cologne. But I could really feel after winning those 3 tournaments, now I need a new goal. I need I had an ultimative goal, but I need a new set goal, what I need to achieve this season. And yeah, the Grand Slam was a big big shadow, right? Because it just became longer and longer and longer. And I know I've been in many teams. It's not often you win trophies after 1 year together.
Yes.
That's how CS is. After a year together, and you had one before that, there's a big chance you don't win again. But that's how CS works. And for us to do it 18 months after we created a one Katowice, it was good to see that we can still win. But we've also been competitive for many tournaments. It's not like we just bombed out being number 15 in the world or something.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Obviously, when you do win the big tournaments, like you say, it would also be easy for people to do that thing of right, that's the last chapter of the story. Yeah, I did it. Okay, cool. Doesn't matter what happens now in my career. But actually, you still had that hunger. Once you get in position, you're right, we can win more. And obviously, like you say, that is the detail people don't remember. Think of all the other Grand Slam wins. They basically all were when people were on a heater. You can lose the odd tournament, but you win the next one. It's not like you get to the 3 notches and then it's just lose. Eventually, you start to think this is it. Everyone, in fact, I think everyone in the scene already decided you weren't going to win it, right? They were always it's probably blown now. They've blown the chance.
Yeah, it was Cloud9 1-1, Vitality 1-1, then G2 1-1. I was like, a lot of names are stacking up right now. If one of them wins 2, the pressure's on, the game is on. So yeah, I mean, I think that was the first time took me 2 or 3 days after we won it in Melton Pro League to realize we actually did it. But for 8 months, it's been my daily goal to finish the shit, because I had the first Grand Slam with FaZe. We even tried to win it with Standard. We were 3 out of 7 or 8, and then Astralis came in and sweep it, we had still 2 chances left, or 1 chance left, but we didn't qualify for that Pro League where they won it. It was a rough times because we started the Grand Slam season the best of anyone, I think, with that lineup, because it just started there and we could have won the first season. So I knew that it can drag out, but we just have to stay positive and think, okay, there was just another tournament on the block, but it was very hard to serve the 3 times. A little bit unlucky, guys. Got it next time, but also felt like we were never close. We were not in the final. We didn't choke it away, but because when the Grand Slam, I only thought about it when we won the semifinal. We're in the final now. We win now, we win the Grand Slam. If not, we're in deep shit now. Only Rio's left us the last chance. So I'm super proud of how we did it, because in Melter we didn't play great. We didn't play great as a team, but individually played really good. And I think we found a way to win without playing our best game. But the tournaments we won, I feel like people didn't. It was, like I said, it was meant to be. The Malta thing was a long road, like, because it's long tournaments with like 3 matches in the group stage. We had to play 4 or 5 matches in the playoff. We were there for a long time, and obviously for every day you get closer, people maybe start thinking 5% more about every day. So yeah, like the Malta thing was a relief. After I think I walked around here and where I lived 3 days after, and was like starting smiling it finally. But I realized that all the pressure I had for 8-9 months, I don't think people realized it. Because like in between, we had the major, and okay, we could win a major and a Grand Slam. How epic would that be? We go out 0-3, and it's like the major didn't even start for us, and all the dreams of what it could happen was just over, and it just kept dragging out, and then it was rough. But I think I realized that it took a lot on my mind without me knowing that this could be a big dot on my legacy, like in how I see things. It didn't manage to win a Grand Slam, even when they won the first 3, like it will be a big black dot on what I just achieved 6 months before that. And obviously I didn't want to let that affect me, but I could feel it in every day that we're getting further and further away, but then we managed to win it in a good fashion of showing how deep this team is. If I'm not calling my best, we can still win, and if they're not playing the best, I can still call us home. And that was what it felt in Malta. It was a mix of everything.
When you talk about that example of the Rio Major where you went out 0-3, to me that also shows you how different media culture is now, the scrutiny on you if you're a top player. Like if people don't know from 1.6, I'll tell you the example. Like there was a point in time when I used to work for SK Gaming where we had Robban and Valle, and they'd both actually been in like 4 or 5 majors and they'd lost them all at the time. Eventually Robban won his with Get Right, and that's and when they were like that, right, when I would bring this up in interviews, I was the asshole, because at the time you didn't do that. You didn't take like great players and go, but you didn't do this. Like, what about this? Like, did he fail here? What you did back then was they were great players. Yeah, they hadn't won. So maybe if you're making like a top 5 list ever, they wouldn't make it. But it's like more, like they were just really great players that didn't win. That's more like what sports and esports was like back then. Now, like you're saying, even when actually you're like 3 notches in, you've won all these massive tournaments, when you fail a major like that, and it's happened all the other tournaments you've lost as well, it's not a joke. People actually want you fired. Like, they're like, right, that's it. It's over. They can never win again. Like, the scrutiny is crazy now, right? Like, essentially, if you don't win, you're a bomb.
Yeah, I mean, also now it's like only, I think, was it when we were in Dallas? It's only 2 months ago we won a Grand Slam, but people are still calling for our hits in FaZe because we started playing bad, in the Paris. But Paris, we're just fighting, to stay alive, because in that tournament we were dead many times, but still like a patient in coma, still breathing somehow and still playing in the major. So I think it's just how it is. It wasn't back then. There was no big social media, but you're also getting paid a lot more money now, and you have to handle this stuff. It's part of the game, as one of my friends says. It's just like how it is. You cannot change it. You can only let it affect you. And obviously sometimes I used it as a motivation, and sometimes I stay away. But I have showcased sometimes people called me bad for like 6 years, and then I'm done. And after FaZe I was done. After Mouse I was done. But then I joined FaZe again, and after 6 months they're calling for my head. Then we got Robs, and then everybody said, yeah, of course you have to win with this lineup. And here we go again, Like once you get a good lineup and you start winning, then the expectations are high. But that's also why I came back to FaZe. I love it, In Mouse, like nobody was mad if we didn't make top 8. It's like, yeah. But in FaZe, if you don't make it, even with the worst lineup, there's still expectations, and that's what I love. I love this pressure. I love to prove people wrong, just like AWPer said in the major. I was laughing when he said that, so I told all the haters to basically fuck off. But
that's the shit, yeah.
But it's the part of the game. Like there has to be one scapegoat from every team. I'm happy. I'm the scapegoat more than not in FaZe. I want the guys to feel good. I can take the responsibility as long as my team trusts me, right? So as long as they don't scapegoat me, but we are trying to work this out, because nowadays it's not easy to win. You cannot build a team to win. You can build a team to compete for finals and wins, but if there's an error, it's very unlikely that it's built to be an error. It just comes.
One of the weird things is, even when you won the 3 tournaments in a row, and even when you'd won like whatever, when you clone it, it'd be like, I don't know, like 4 out of 6 or something. When you at the period, like on paper, if someone looks at the Wikipedia, they're going to be like, "Oh, dominance! Look how dominant!" I always used to tell people, this is the weirdest team I've ever seen win. It's why I always say, I don't know if you're the greatest team ever, but I think you're the most exciting team to watch play, because even when you win the tournament, like most tournaments, you lose an early match, which is like, what? Like normally people, if they're dominant, they just smash everyone till the final. Then there's always these like matches where, even if it's 2-0, there's no 2-0 for FaZe Clan that's easy. It's always like, right, 16-11, and they were up 8-2, and we had to come back and win this clutch or something. It feels like it's always a crazy back and forth match with this team. What is it about the style of the team? Because obviously, in a way, they do thrive in these scenarios, right? But it almost feels like you have to beat a match like that before the best FaZe comes out.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like let's say we're a 3-headed monster, right? It just feels like if you're slapping one head and the other head and the third head, then they start waking up, they start working together. Okay. They start understanding that we need to do something. And I think the most interesting thing, I try to reflect on it, why it is, because I brought it up with my wife. I don't know what happens. There's something that clicks. The second the enemies get 12, 13, 14 rounds, and it just feels like we get more calm. Like, for some reason, it feels like, okay, now, if you lose this, we're out. That ain't happening, Like, it just feels like there's a switch in the team where it starts to get, I don't want to say serious, but just like a wake-up call, I think. And then we are doing risky plays, we take calculated risk, and I start trying to make high-risk calls instead of trying maybe to call a default and get into a game. So I just think there's like the switch in every player that somehow it just meshes with each other, and there can be a lot of chaos in the comments in the beginning, but once the game gets tight, it just feels like everybody's focusing on every single part of the map, part by part by part, instead of thinking we should end here or do this or do that, but everybody's thinking about, I need this kill now. It just seems like we go so deep to the basics when it gets into the game. So if I'm calling jumping through smoke, everybody jumps, but maybe early in the game clear a little slower, trying to get into the game. But once we hit that, you can feel it in the team as well. It's just like super calm, super clean information. The communication gets better. People start playing better. And you could just see the clutches are turning our way now. And then when the first clutch comes in, the second gun is coming. Then there's a third guy doing it. So, yeah, I think it's very unique. And to this day, I don't know what it is that happens. But something happens. But like you said, we can be up 8-2. Then suddenly we're behind 8-12, and then we wake up again, and then we lose a stupid round. It also has to be one stupid round at 13-13 or something, and then it's a wild game in the end, like the ends in Dallas. It's like basically the basics are throwing out of the game now. Now it's just like, who wants this to win the most? And I think you see us to get way more hyped end of a game than beginning of a game, and I think maybe that's helped to push the team as well.
Another principle I've sort of come up with is one of my theories from watching 20 years of Counter-Strike is the other thing about great teams is other teams have to have the tournament of their life. To win the tournament, everything has to go great, star players to drink, all the calls. Great teams, the thing about them is they can be, like you say, half dead and buried. The other team's this close to the finish line, but I always have this thing I say to underdog teams, which is like, if you're up map 1 and then you're up big on map 2, you better actually just bury them now. Because if you wait, if you keep giving, I've seen this with all the teams, NIP, Virtus Pro, FNATIC, if you keep giving them like the odd, tiny little lifelines, these aren't even big. Like, remember, when you're down like, 3-15 or so, you don't really think at that point you can win the game. But if you keep letting them have a chance, eventually, like you say, someone's going to wake up. They're going to sort of remember, like, hey, we're actually a fucking great team. And the one I have to bring up is the Na'Vi one to get into the playoffs. Because if people forget this, like that third map, dude, your team isn't even good on Anubis. I don't even think you were good in that game on Anubis. And Electronic was just fucking going crazy, just farming the whole thing. Like that's about as close I've ever seen to like an impossible comeback. Like to even get to like, I think they were already in 15 rounds. They had loads of map points. Like that's one of the most ridiculous ones I've ever seen to actually win the game off.
Yeah, especially because our CD side Anubis haven't been great. I mean, obviously our T side has been good, and we're down 15-8 on the CD side. I'm thinking, all this practice on the CT side doesn't look like it's a workout, and we're trying some of this stuff. We are playing aggressive, we're not scared to lose. But again, something clicks, and then we are just moving as a team. We are playing as a team. We are taking higher risk individually because like this is a moment where it decides the game, and it just feels like I don't know, it just feels like we have like 3 Messis or 3 Ronaldos in the team. So once they get the ball to attacking field, they know it's a high pressure moment. You know, this guy has the ball. It just feels like we have 3 balls on the field, you know, and everybody just trying to play to their best abilities and doing what's best for the team and staying focused, like really good clean comms and not being chaotic, you know. And I just think that comeback was crazy because I remember they played fast 2 rounds in a row, and I was like, what are they doing? I think like they're actually giving us a chance now by playing fast because the Rector's playing slow with it. It's so hard to move on Anubis. But then once they played fast, they started playing way too slow that we actually could read what was happening. So I think maybe that's one of the classic things that happens to IGL, happens to me as well. It's like when you get to 15-8, let's get this over. Let's play a fast round. And that moment you just get wrecked. And like suddenly there was not even close rounds the first 2 rounds. But the further we went into 15-10, 15-11, that there was 2-on-2s, 1-on-1s, rounds left and right where we had to come back from 4-on-5, where they're turning around, going to opposite side, and we're stacking 2 guys. And yeah, it was crazy. But it just felt like we were in the game. There was not at any point where everybody's like, let's go, you know. It's just like round by round. Like, but then when we get to 13-14, we start shouting because now we're getting this close to finishing off a comeback. And of course it's Na'Vi. Is again, you know, like it's a team that doesn't break. Like they normally finish off the job. Like if you give Na'Vi 15-8 leads, it's not often they throw those. They will be around by Simple or Electronic that will just like win the round just like within a few seconds, right? So but yeah, I think and then I think we made a high risk call 15-14. We rushed them. We played passive. And then I think we fake rush. We did like a high risk call where we all said like it's now or never. You know, we play passive a few rounds. Let's just get in their face and rattle them. You know, because if we go into overtime there with a round by that, we play aggressive. Then it's just super cool. You know, like we have good situation to close without them.
I've been pleasantly surprised during the time I've had my Patreon and my Patreon community, the Scrilluminati, by both the financial support they've provided and the moral support. And so this video was kindly supported and made possible by Starlust, Theo Buenzelli, Ahmed Haju, Matt Pugnaccio Racula, Toucan, Jensen Go, Animosity, Tobias Bernasconi, Bot Pounder 420, Yerka 86, Tosh, and as always, you know it, a special thanks goes out to my main man, Jerky's Minion. Would you like to ask a question in one of those AMAs where I tend to go pretty in depth? Sometimes they even spin out into their own videos. Do you want teasers to find out who the upcoming guests are for the myriad of interviews that I do across esports? Maybe you want to suggest a topic or a guest? We have a channel on my Discord where you can do that if you're at the right tier. And of course, you could potentially take part in one of those lengthy esports discussions with me about whatever is on your mind in the scene. Well, if any of those perks sound tantalizing, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.